Ladies and gents, welcome back to another video. In front of me here is a box with an iPad inside. Now I'm pretty excited about this video because this is an iPad Pro 12.9 inch first generation and it's running iOS 9. So let's get it opened up and see what kind of condition it's in and verify that it is in fact on its original firmware. Alright, here is our iPad. This is definitely the 12.9 inch. This thing is massive. I use an 11 inch iPad Pro as my main device, and this thing just feels silly to hold in my hands how large this is. But there we go. It's already turned on. You can see we've got slide to unlock, and I'm used to the modern gestures. I need to turn the brightness up. There we go. This thing barely even fits in the frame here. Slide to unlock. This thing looks a little dirty, so let me get this cleaned up before we begin. Alright, this thing cleaned up wonderfully. Take a look here at the display. I'm not seeing any scratches. Actually, I take that back. There might be right here. I can't tell if those are scratches. Yeah, I think they are. I think those are scratches there. But that's okay. I mean, there's no cracks on this thing, and there are no major deep scratches anywhere. Looking around the outside of the device, it looks super clean. We've got, of course, our quad speakers, 2 on the top and 2 down here on the bottom. Lightning port, and if you guys can't tell, this is in the gold color. I know sometimes it's hard to differentiate that from white, especially on camera, but this is gold. And here we go. So slide to unlock iOS 9. If you couldn't tell there from the home screen, we've got the white music icon. Of course, we've got the iOS 9 wallpaper there. Some other clues to give it away, but to know for sure, we're going to head into settings, general, and about. And as you can see, we're running 9.3.4. Of course, this is a 32 gigabyte model, which was the minimum amount that you could get at the time. Very nice. There's no battery health on iPads. I think they should add that, but iPhones didn't even have it here on iOS 9. So let's talk about this. This was the first iPad Pro Apple release. This thing came out in November of 2015, and it changed the game. It was a massive increase in size and performance over the previous iPad, which happened to be the iPad Air 2nd gen. This iPad Pro features a increased 12.9 inch display measured diagonally. That is up from 9.7 inches on the previous iPads. Now let me do a little comparison here. So here we have an iPad Air 2nd gen. You can tell because it has the Touch ID button there. Actually, this is not an Air 2. I don't know what this is. This came in a lot of electronics and it's locked, so nothing to do there. But look at the difference here in size between this 9.7 inch and the 12.9 inch over here. Big difference. So if you've never held one of these, it is substantial. This iPad had a lot of firsts in the iPad world. So of course it was the first one to feature this large display. It was the first iPad and iOS device ever to feature 4 gigabytes of RAM. So the iPads before it, the iPad 4th gen had 1 gigabyte, the iPad Air had 1 gigabyte, and the iPad Air 2 had 2 gigabytes. So this was the first iPad to increase that memory size, and I'm going to get on the Wi-Fi here. And with that, this device has the A9X chip. So this iPad Pro was the most powerful device made by Apple at the time, most powerful iOS device. I'm sure the MacBooks were probably a little bit quicker, but this was also the fastest dual-core processor Apple ever included in any iOS device, clocked at 2.26 gigahertz. That's faster than the iPad Pro 9.7 that released later, and it's also faster than the iPhone 6s and the iPad 5th gen. Those all share that A9 chip, but of course this has the A9X. Interestingly, the iPad Pro 1st gen 9.7 inch, which launched earlier in 2016 after this release, only had 2 gigabytes of RAM. But this was the first time the iPad featured 32 gigabytes as a starting entry level capacity. And this was a very successful device. It also was the first iPad to include Apple Pencil support. Now, I don't have a first gen Apple Pencil to show you, but it's gotten a lot of jokes because you have to plug it in here to the lightning port in order to charge it. The new pencils, they just stick magnetically on the side of the iPads. So as you can see here, this launched with 9.1 on the 12.9 inch and 9.3 for the 9.7 inch. And I don't know a whole lot about iOS 9. I think it was more of a refinement on iOS 8, but it runs super smooth on here. This display is gorgeous. I still can't get over how big this is, but it looks very nice. And I've actually never seen a iPad Pro first gen running iOS 9. So here you go. There's a picture from when it came out, and that's just how it looked normally. But yeah, mine still looks like that here in 2024. Almost 10 years. I mean, this iPad is almost 10 years old. That's crazy that this thing came out 10 years ago, at least. At least we're getting close to that. I think it's eight years or something. But it looks awesome. You can update this all the way to iOS 16 if you have one. Although, if yours is on iOS 9 or 10, definitely don't do that. Some other features of this iPad that aren't necessarily unique to it. You've got Touch ID here on the bottom. You've got a microphone there on that side. And we've got our 8 megapixel camera here on the back. This is the only iPad Pro to launch with an 8 megapixel camera. The 9.7 inch upgraded that to 12 megapixels, and they added an LED flash, which this does not have. This does have those quad speakers, which sound really nice. This one sounds okay. Some of the new iPads, even the 11-inch iPad Pros, they sound fantastic. Really good speakers. Obviously, the big selling point of this iPad is the display. It looks fantastic. I should also point out with that extra screen real estate, they added the numbers up here. Other iPads don't have that. I think that's only the 12.9. But this screen is great for watching videos. And here we're looking at a flyover tour of New York City, which looks pretty nice here on this display as well. One thing to note, this is not a ProMotion display. So this is a 60 hertz panel. The first generation iPad Pro was the only iPad Pro to feature that 60 hertz panel. And it's certainly not as nice, especially if you're used to ProMotion on the iPhones, the later iPads, and even the MacBooks now have it. So let's check out these iOS 9 wallpapers. We don't get to see them too often because iOS 9 devices are hard to find. A lot of carryover from iOS 8, but this is of course the standard wallpaper for iOS 9. A lot of these have a dark background, which I'm not a huge fan of, especially not on a white device like this. How about one of these? I think this one actually will look really nice. We're going to set that as the wallpaper, and that is a nice color there. It looks great with our gold iPad. I should also point out the smart connector here allows you to connect Apple's smart keyboard accessories, which at the time were the first of its kind, but compared to what exists now, not very useful. I still can't get over the size of this iPad. It does feel pretty nice now that I'm getting used to it, but I think the new ones with the smaller bezels, you get the same size screen, but the actual iPad itself is smaller. It's a very nice device, and this has been super hard for me to find here on iOS 9. Looks pretty cool, and yeah, I'm happy to finally have one to add to my collection, and I'm struggling to get it to stay inside the camera frame here. Usually I don't have this problem, but since this iPad is so large, it's difficult. Actually a little laggy there, scrolling through the photos. I don't know if you guys can tell that. I don't know if that's an iOS 9 problem or if this iPad is not really able to keep up with the display here with the A9 chip. This was the most powerful dual-core processor Apple ever shipped. I mentioned that before. Let's check out the performance, although it is not even close to the modern iPads. So we're having some Safari problems here with iOS 9. It's so old that this iPad is struggling. So let's see. Here we go. All the way down at the bottom, we've got the Mini 4, the Air 2. These are single core scores, I think. Yeah, single core. And where is our iPad Pro? Right here. So we're looking at, and I just clicked the wrong one. Here we go. So single core coming in at 757, multi-core 1269, And if we compare that here, here's the Apple M2 chip in the new iPad Pro. The single core score is more than double the multi-core score here on this iPad. And the multi-core score is like 3 to 4 times as powerful as this. And look at that metal score. This thing scored 6,000 on the graphics test, and the M1 and the M2 are in the 30 and 40 thousands. So insane performance gains here compared to the modern devices. But at the time, this was a pretty respectable improvement over the iPad 5th gen and the iPad Air 2, and especially that Mini 4 with its dual core processor. The Air 2 actually got a triple core, the only one to ever have that. But there you go. This iPad's great for web browsing as well. I'm just realizing that for myself. I am interested to see if this iPad can capture 60 FPS video. I don't think it can. No, it cannot. So you're stuck at 1080p 30. I know the 2nd gen iPad Pro 12.9 or the 10.2, I forget what size that one is, can record 60 FPS video as well as 4K 30. So this is an 8 megapixel camera, not very capable. Can it do slow motion? Yes, it can. That was introduced in the iPad Air 2. But let's be honest, if you're walking around with this thing taking photos and videos, you're going to have to do some reflecting on your life decisions because that's a little odd. Okay, I think that's going to do it for this video. That's been a look at the iPad Pro 12.9-inch first generation running iOS 9.3.4. Hope you enjoyed this video. This has been pretty fun for me to make. I don't get these larger sized iPads very often, and especially not on their original versions of iOS. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I look forward to seeing you in another one of my videos.